Should 80 earthquakes in a matter of hours have you worried if you live in or near the Bay Area? I have seen that exact number spreading across social media this week, tied to a swarm rattling the ground roughly 70 to 90 miles north of San Francisco, and I want to give you all the honest, complete answer. Because the real story here is genuinely interesting, but it is not the story most headlines are implying. Let's start with exactly where these quakes are actually coming from, because the location changes everything about how to interpret this swarm. This activity is centered at the geysers, a geothermal field spanning roughly 45 square miles across the border of Sonoma, Lake, and Mendocino counties, generally somewhere between 70 and 90 miles north of San Francisco. This is not just some random patch of Northern California ground. The geysers is recognized as the largest geothermal field on the entire planet, home to nearly 24 power plants that convert naturally occurring underground steam directly into electricity, currently producing around 725 megawatts of continuous power, enough to supply roughly 725,000 homes. Here is the detail that I think genuinely catches people off guard the first time they learn it. A significant share of the earthquakes happening at the geysers are not purely natural tectonic events the way most people imagine a California earthquake working. The United States Geological Survey has been direct about this. The actual process of harnessing this geothermal steam induces frequent minor earthquakes in the surrounding rock. Two specific mechanisms drive this, as steam is continuously withdrawn from underground reservoirs to feed the power plants, the surrounding rock contracts, and that contraction itself generates small earthquakes. Separately, already used water gets pumped back down into these same steam reservoirs to help sustain the field's long-term output, and the sharp thermal contrast between that cooler, reclaimed water and the much hotter surrounding rock creates additional stress capable of triggering more small quakes. This exact combination, steam withdrawal paired with water reinjection, is why the geysers consistently produces far more small earthquakes than most comparably sized stretches of California ground. So, how unusual is an 80 quake swarm at this specific location? Really? Less than you might think. Just this past August, a swarm of roughly 100 earthquakes struck this same general area, about 90 miles north of San Francisco, with the strongest quake in that sequence reaching magnitude 4. 0. And this pattern goes back further than that single event. A magnitude 4. Two earthquake has previously struck directly at the geysers, part of a cluster of at least 5 quakes hitting within minutes of each other, an event strong enough to be felt as far away as San Francisco itself, some 70 miles south. According to the USGS, the largest earthquake ever recorded at this specific location came in at approximately magnitude 4. 5. And while a magnitude 5 event is considered technically possible, seismologists view anything meaningfully larger than that as unlikely given the specific mechanics driving this particular type of induced seismicity. Now let's get to the actual question everybody wants answered. Does a swarm like this one mean a bigger, more dangerous earthquake is building underneath the Bay Area? Based on decades of monitoring by seismologists who study this exact region, the answer is no, not in the way that question implies. Earthquake swarms at the geysers are considered a normal, expected, genuinely routine feature of how this specific geothermal field operates, tied directly to the same steam withdrawal and water reinjection processes that have been running continuously for decades. This is fundamentally different from a sequence of foreshocks building toward a major rupture on a large regional fault. The USGS has repeated this same message across multiple past swarms at this exact location. This specific pattern of activity does not indicate that some larger earthquake is quietly building beneath the surface. I do want to be careful here, though, because I do not want anybody watching this to walk away thinking Northern California carries zero real seismic hazard, since that conclusion would be just as misleading in the opposite direction. The genuine serious earthquake risk for this region comes not from the geysers itself, but from the major regional faults running nearby, specifically the San Andreas Fault and the Healdsburg-Rogers Creek Fault, both fully capable of producing significantly larger, more damaging earthquakes than anything the geysers has ever generated or is expected to generate. The swarm activity making headlines this week and the region's genuine established major fault hazard are really two separate stories that happen to share the same general neighborhood on a map, and mixing the two together is exactly how a well-understood, routine geothermal phenomenon turns into an unnecessarily alarming headline. Let me widen the lens for a second and give you all the fuller Bay Area seismic picture, because I think it helps put this specific swarm in proper context. San Francisco sits within a region the USGS classifies as very high on the national scale for seismic activity, and the broader area has recorded dozens of magnitude 1.0 or greater earthquakes within just the past 30 days across its wider 75-kilometer radius. A combination of activity from the geysers, separate swarms like the ones I have covered before near San Ramon, and ordinary background seismicity along the region's dense network of faults. According to the USGS's own long-term probability modeling, there's roughly a 72% chance of a magnitude 6.7 or greater earthquake striking within 100 kilometers of San Francisco sometime within the next 30 years, and a 51% chance of a magnitude 7, 0 or greater event within that same window. Those numbers reflect the genuine, long-established hazard tied to the region's major fault systems, and they exist completely independent of whatever swarm activity happens to be making headlines up at the geysers on any particular week. So let me bring this together and give you all the complete, honest picture. An 80-quake swarm at the geysers is a real, measurable event, and it makes complete sense that a number that large would grab people's attention when it shows up in a headline. But based on decades of USGS monitoring at this exact location, this kind of swarm is routine, expected, and tied directly to the mechanics of geothermal energy production, not to some building tectonic threat lurking beneath the Bay Area. If you live anywhere across the North Bay, including Sonoma, Lake, or Mendocino counties, you may occasionally feel shaking from activity like this. And that is simply a normal part of living near one of the world's most active geothermal fields. The genuine, ongoing preparedness priority for the broader Bay Area remains exactly what it has always been, staying ready for the region's major fault systems, not this specific, well-understood pattern of induced seismicity happening up at the geysers. If this breakdown answered the question you actually came here with, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because I want to keep giving you all the real science behind headlines like this one, especially when a genuinely well-understood phenomenon gets attached to an alarming sounding number. Share this video with anybody you know across the Bay Area who saw this swarm trending and wanted the actual explanation behind it. I will keep watching the data for y'all, and I will see y'all in the next one. Stay informed, stay prepared, and I love y'all.